Right now, somewhere in your pocket, someone is doing better than you. Better body, better job, better vacation, better relationship. You didn't go looking for this information. It just arrived mid-scroll, uninvited, and now some quiet part of you is running the numbers. You know it's irrational. You know one photo doesn't capture a whole life, and yet you keep comparing anyway. The real reason you can't stop isn't vanity, and it isn't insecurity. It's something far older and far stranger than either of those explanations. It's a measuring system that's been running in the human brain for millions of years, and it was never built for a world where you can see 10,000 lives before breakfast. Here's what's actually happening every time you catch yourself comparing. Start with a basic psychological fact. Psychologist Leon Festinger proposed something in the 1950s called social comparison theory, arguing that humans don't evaluate themselves in a vacuum. You don't just ask, "Am I doing well?" You ask, "Am I doing well compared to them?" Festinger's insight was that this isn't a character flaw. It's how humans figure out where they stand, because for most of your evolutionary history, there was no other way to know. Think about it, there were no rulers for status, no official scoreboard for who was thriving and who wasn't. The only information available was the people directly around you. So the brain evolved a shortcut. Look at your neighbor, measure yourself against them, adjust accordingly. That shortcut kept you safe. Why? Because status wasn't just about ego. In small ancestral groups, status determined who ate first, who got chosen as a mate, who received help when times got hard, and who got protected when danger came. Falling behind the group wasn't an embarrassing thought, it was a survival risk. So your brain built a constant background process, quietly comparing you to the people nearby, checking whether you were keeping pace, not out of vanity, out of necessity. Now here's the detail that changes everything. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar spent years studying the size of human social groups across history, and he found something remarkably consistent. Human beings evolved to track relationships and status within groups of roughly 150 people. Not thousands, not millions, about 150. That's the group your comparison system was built for. A village, a band of hunters and gatherers, a community small enough that you could actually know almost everyone in it, see their real struggles, and understand the full context of their lives. Within a group that size, comparison was mostly accurate. If your neighbor had more food, you could see why. Maybe they worked harder that season, or had more help, or got lucky with the hunt. The comparison had context, it had texture, it had truth. Your brain still runs that exact same program today. The difference is what you're feeding it. Instead of 150 people you actually know, your comparison system is now processing thousands of curated highlight reels from strangers, filtered through camera angles, editing, and careful selection, all engineered, whether intentionally or not, to look better than reality. Does that sound like a fair comparison? It isn't, but your brain doesn't know that. It's still running the ancient algorithm. Look at the people around you, measure yourself, adjust. It just has no idea that around you now means the entire planet. This is where the science gets genuinely uncomfortable. Psychologist Ethan Kross has spent years studying how people process social media, and one of his most striking findings is that passive scrolling, simply observing other people's lives without interacting, correlates with measurable drops in mood and self-worth. Not posting, not commenting, just watching. Why would watching alone hurt? Because your ancient comparison system doesn't require interaction to activate. It only requires visibility. The moment you see someone else's outcome, some part of your brain starts running the calculation automatically, whether you asked it to or not. And here's the cruelest part of the mismatch. In your ancestral village, everyone's hardship was visible too. You saw the bad harvests, you saw the illness, you saw the grief. Comparison was balanced by shared reality. Online hardship is heavily edited out. You see the summit, never the climb. The wedding, never the years of doubt before it. The body, never the discipline or, sometimes, the disorder behind it. Your comparison system is measuring your full, complicated, ordinary life against everyone else's highlight reel, and it doesn't know the math is broken. You didn't create this mismatch. Your brain inherited a perfectly reasonable survival tool and then had it handed an input it was never designed to process. So what do you actually do with that information? Understanding the mechanism doesn't shut it down completely, but it does something almost as useful. It changes what the feeling means. That sting you feel scrolling past someone else's success isn't proof that your life is falling short. It's an ancient status tracking circuit, misfiring on data it can't properly interpret. Some researchers studying this pattern have found that simply naming the distortion, consciously reminding yourself that you're comparing your behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel, reduces the emotional sting measurably. Not because the feeling disappears, but because you stop mistaking an old reflex for new information. There's another detail worth sitting with. Festinger's original research found that people don't just compare upward, toward those doing better. They also compare downward, toward those doing worse, and that comparison tends to bring comfort rather than distress. Which means the same ancient circuit that makes you feel small scrolling past a stranger's vacation photos is also, quietly, capable of making you feel grounded when you see someone struggling with something you've already overcome. The system isn't broken. It's just aimed at a target size it was never built to handle. Your ancestors never had to comparison shop their entire existence against a species-wide highlight reel before finishing their coffee. Their comparison system checked in against a village. Yours checks in against the world, every single day, often before you've even gotten out of bed. That's not a personal failing. That's a mismatch between ancient hardware and a modern flood of information it was never calibrated to handle. So the next time you feel that quiet pull of not quite enough while scrolling through someone else's life, notice it for what it actually is. Not truth, not a verdict on your worth, just an old village instinct, doing its best with information from a village that no longer exists. Right now, somewhere in your pocket, someone is doing better than you, in one narrow, curated frame. And somewhere in that same pocket, someone is quietly struggling in ways you'll never see either. Your ancient brain was only ever built to know the difference between the two.